cold frozen tundra of the Great White North.
Or at least in the eyes of most Americans.
Craig Knight speaks to unique Canadians who've made a difference in music, film, television, and more. Join us for another episode of UCanNow with Craig Knight.
Hey everybody, here we are Here we are in 2015, and it's a new year for all of us. It's a new year for UCanNow. It's actually our first full year in production. We did a couple of test episodes last year. We did one with Ruud Van Steens of the band Arson and Mendelsohn Joe, artist, activist, writer, musician, poet. You name it. And, both those episodes did really, really well, and I'm really kind of excited about the response we got to it. As I said, and I've said on the last two shows, the whole idea of this podcast is to basically promote Canadian talent to Canadians and the world, really. We've got this wealth of Canadian talent here in this country, and it's funny that the business seems to work on the impression that there's this giant wall up along the border between the U.S. and Canada, and it's really not so. Our business model is one that certainly lends itself to taking a lot of grants and financing from the government in order to produce our art, but at the same time we do produce art that is commercially viable. And not only that, we produce art that is really damn fucking good. And Mendelsohn Joe was certainly a fantastic interview, and Ruud, a guy being in the industry for as long as he has, and has created as much work as he has. Both those guys were just really, really interesting to me, and I hope they were to you. And so today, what we've got is John Power. John is an interesting dude. He's a working class hero. He's a guy that basically came up on his own, used his own wherewithal to sort of create not only a business for himself, but a future, and an artist in his own right. And started out as a sound man for a lot of different bands. And is now just in the process of completing a documentary on the band Goddo. So we'll get into that a little bit. It was interesting how I actually discovered John. I was obviously, a Goddo fan and just through the internet and sort of keeping up with things, I was aware that there was this documentary being made. But I wasn't really too aware of John. I knew his name. I knew he'd been sort of around various bands through the years, and that was pretty much it. But the funny thing is, a few years ago, while going through this adoption disclosure stuff, I'm adopted. I was adopted when I was a kid. And, I did the whole adoption disclosure information. I registered on the adoption registry. I did all that kind of stuff. And I got this document that basically explained my whole past. And it was great. It gave me a whole bunch of information, but it actually didn't give me any identifying information. So there's really nothing I could go on for many, 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 many years. And then the laws changed, and I was able to get my birth certificate. And when I did, I learned my last name. I learned sort of, the area in which my birth mother lived when I was born. I knew from the previous document that I had a couple of older siblings. So I went on to Facebook and I started looking around, and I found this one high school in the area. It was near Yorkdale Mall. And I went through this high school. I guess they just had a reunion, so I went through all their different pictures. And, I was looking for an older brother and older sister. So I kept looking for the last name. And, I couldn't see any Knights anywhere. But I saw this one guy in all these pictures. It was like, okay, who's this guy? He seems to know everybody. He's Mr. Personality. He seems to be the friends of everybody in the school. So I sent him a note. I found him on Facebook, and I sent him a note. And his name's Mike. I sent him a note, and I said, hey, man, do you happen to know these people? And he didn't. He hadn't heard of them and wasn't aware of them, but told me that he'd basically been the guy that had brought everybody together for the reunion, was the guy that went out and found everybody and was able to bring them all together, and said, because he'd been doing that, he thought he could probably help me out. So I gave him my information. Within a week or two, he wrote me back and said, I got some good news, I got some bad news. He said, the good news is I found your family, and the bad news is, your mother just passed. And the unfortunate thing is I missed her by a month. And what Mike had found was her death notice. And on that death notice, obviously were listed different family members. And it was through those family members that I was actually able to reach out and contact my birth family. And to this date, I've met three of four siblings. I still have one yet to meet. Janice, I will meet you soon. Anyway, it was through Mike, again, that, sent me a note and said, hey, I know this dude, John Power. And he says, I think he'd be a really interesting cat for you to talk to. Again, it's like, yeah, man, I know John Power. I've come across his name plenty of times, and I'd absolutely love to do it. So here we are, Mike. Thank you very much for pulling this together. And thanks for everything you did, man. I mean, I appreciate that. And, we got to get together again soon. Anyway, so here we are. John Power is going to tell us about sort of his upbringing and Goddo and what he's doing now. I'm going to apologize. I mean, I'm going to apologize for the sound quality of this. We stepped into I just moved into a new place and setting up a new studio in there, and the room just wasn't ready, man. The live sound is just incredible, and I've done all I can to sort of decrease the sort of room sound. And I wasn't going to put the interview up, but honestly, I think it's interesting. I think John's a fascinating guy, and he's a really nice guy, and I really want to get his message out. So here it is. I hope you enjoy it.
Anyways, okay.
But I'm glad you're here.
Yes.
And I'm looking at your resume, and it's like, my God, who haven't you worked with? I mean, this is really just incredible. But let's go back to the beginning. So you're in high school. You grew up where? Where part of the city did you grow up?
Avenue of Lawrence.
Okay.
Yeah, Avenue of Lawrence, North Toronto. Yeah.
And you're how many in your family?
I'm the youngest. I was the youngest of three boys.
So were your brothers the influence to you with regards to music and stuff, or how did that all come to be?
Well, I guess my mother used to tell me a story how in 1956, I was 3 years old. And she came into the kitchen one day, and I got her wooden spoons out, and I had all these pots laid around me, and I was sitting there playing them. And God bless her, until the day she died, she had one of those double boiler pots.
Oh, yeah.
And you put one inside the other, and one was all welted on the bottom for me playing it. So somehow I had it in me to do, why wooden spoons?
Yeah.
First of all, that's the question I asked. And
do you remember seeing anything on like Ed Sullivan or anything like that where you
it's
saw?
1956.
Yeah.
There wasn't a lot of television going on.
That's true.
So I don't know where it came from. But now at 61 years of age, I lost my mother when I was 30. I reflect upon that, and I'm getting a lot more spiritual as I get older. When you're young, you're invincible.
Yeah.
And I look back on it and I'm going, wow, I've always had a sense of travel. I've always loved to travel. And if you believe in past lives, I mean, you can get it. We can talk for hours on this, but something in me, and I believe I'm doing what I'm doing. I believe I'm doing what I'm meant to do. I'm here to do something, and I believe I'm fulfilling it now. And then when I was about 9 years of age, my brother Bill, who I just lost last March, he used to flood the ice down at the North York skating rink, which was right next to the Jolly Miller Tavern.
Yep.
In Hogs Hollow there.
Yeah, right at Yonge and York Mills there.
Yeah. And there used to be a little freestanding building south, just south, but up against the Jolly Miller Tavern. It was a tavern, trays of draft beer,
Yeah.
And my brother used to flood the ice there, so I used to tag along. And up in the attic of this place, they had a set of drums, and they had a couple of guitar amps, and my brother was, messing around with stuff, and I'd go up there and watch them play, and I was intrigued by that. And then I finally got, the owner of the North York, or the manager of the skating rink, said to me one day, you got an interest in this here, come here, I want to give you a job. And he put me on the turntable, spinning the 45s for the people as they skated. With those big metal horns and the trees outside. That parking lot, the Jolly Miller, was all wooded at one point. You used to skate around the trees, just like a Rockwell painting, It was really quite something.
It's beautiful in there, that's why,
Pot-bellied stove to heat the place up, and hot chocolate, that kind of a vibe. And then at about the age of 10, David Wilcox moved up the street from me. And at that point, I guess David was playing with Ian and Sylvia, with the great speckled bird. And we used to see him walking by the house. And his sister Vicky taught me how to play Love Potion number 9 on the drums. She was a great drummer. I think Vicky works for the CBC now, or she used to anyways.
Okay, yeah.
So, onto the drums I went, and my parents just hated it. I mean, they were both from World War II.
Yeah.
And I think just me sitting down in the basement banging away on drums with headphones on, they did, it just sounded like rubbish to them. And I used to go down and jam with this guy named Ken Greer. And Kenny had a band called Bear Mother, and different guys were floating through it.
This is high school now,
Yeah,
right?
we're high school, yeah. And I was jamming with those guys on a semi-regular basis, junior high school actually, to be accurate. And jamming with those guys, and I wasn't as good a drummer as I was hoping to be, but it was coming along. And on Grey Cup Day, when I was 15 or 16, I got hit by a car.
Oh, geez.
And I got laid up for about a year and a half on different surgeries on my left hip, which took me off the drum throne, which my parents probably thought was a blessing from God.
They hired the driver.
Yeah, they hired the driver. Great Cup Day. I remember getting hit by the car and everything else, and the police calling my dad. It was Great Cup Day, of course, and they're all hammered. They've had a Great Cup party, right? And I had a huge lump in my head, and I had a pain on my left buttock. Doctors were all worried about the bump in my head. A year later, I was sitting in school, and I sat down on one of those fiberglass molded chairs that fit your bum, and my left arm got numb, and my left leg got numb, and I felt tingling down my neck and stuff, so they rushed me to the hospital, and a blood clot had formed in between my hip joint, and it had broken. And I guess when it broke, it pinched a nerve or something. I'm not too clear, but I'm not going to show it to you, but I got a scar in my behind, about like this, where they had to open me up.
Oh, wow.
So I was off playing drums for a while. And I'm sure my parents thought that was a blessing in disguise. I couldn't keep my payments up on my drum kit. I bought a set of drums, Long and McQuaid, so I took them back to Long and McQuaid. And one day Ken Greer phoned me and said, "We need a sound man." And I said, "What's a sound man?" And the rest is history. I off of a Shure vocal master and a couple of Shure columns. He said, "Well, you just got to balance the vocals out." Well, I can do that.
Yeah.
Right at the time when PA systems were really coming into their own. I was fortunate enough to get a job at a company called Power Supply on O'Connor
Yeah.
that just had stage amplifiers and PA systems. And I got it on the ground floor, and as stuff got introduced, I learned how to use it and how to work it. And I got the reputation of being a pretty good sound man. I had a grasp on it. And of course, rock was my thing. I think one of the most influential albums of my life was probably Led Zeppelin. Well, Led Zeppelin 1 for sure. But Beach Boys, Good Vibrations, listening to it, I was always interested in sound texture. And even before I had the car accident, Kenny and I had reel-to-reel tape machines. I should mention that Kenny Greer went on to found a band called Red Rider. And we hired a guy that you might have heard of, Tom Cochrane, to do some vocals.
Oh, that guy.
Yeah, it all worked out, And of course, I didn't go on my drumming at all. But as a result of my sound work, I was able to work with bands. I didn't like the position of being what you would term as a roadie, I guess, because most musicians look at the crew guy as labor. If you're the sound man, of course, you had a little bit of a tighter relationship with the band. But from working so closely with Kenny and the guys, I always felt as if I was working with the talent instead of for the talent. So if I had a gig, when I finally got out on my own and had to go and work for a living at doing these gigs, I had to realize that it's not all kumbaya. Some of them it's a straight gig, and I avoided that like the plague.
Yeah. How did you stayed in that, or did you, once you started doing sound, did you have an interest in going into production, and was that sort of
I hated the studio.
Yeah.
You'll talk to musicians and they'll say, "What's been the most memorable thing in your life?" Well, playing to 50,000 people, standing on that stage looking out. Well, I'll tell you something, there's nothing more exciting than sitting in the middle of the 50,000 people with 300 watts of audio power at your control. You want to perform an act of terrorism. Give me a line of coke back then, a bottle of vodka, I could have wiped out 50,000 people, But that was a buzz. Because if you had a good sound system, and back in the days when PAs were really good, I think the new PA systems that's another story for another time, but back in those days you had the big boxes, and the box itself helped with the sound. If you had a great PA system, and you had a band that had their crap together on stage, then you're off to the races. And at the end of a song, when the place all cheers and the band's cheering, I sort of you know.
Yeah, in the studio, you obviously don't get that. I mean,
And in the studio, it's, you know, take this again, take this again, take this again. And I've done demo stuff. I've worked on, well, you know, my most recent thing, of course, you know, the Goddo thing. I did the mix and produced that in the studio. That was labor intensive. That was a month and a half of cleaning up the tracks to get rid of all the feedback and rumbles that were in the room that day because of the live sound engineer.
But you basically work with everybody. I mean, I think you've got down here, you worked with, I mean, Goddo obviously back then too in the early days, but I mean, Moxie, Red Rider, you know, Loverboy models, everybody, basically every Toronto band at the time, right? You had something to do with these guys.
Well, you know,
Were you like the go-to sound guy at that time?
I think that there was a handful of us.
Yeah.
You know, if one tour was going, then you'd be able to move on, you know, and do it. But when Red Rider, when I was actively involved with Red Rider, they got a house gig at the El Macombo, and Tom wasn't in the band yet. It was Kenny Greer and the guys, and they couldn't get arrested out there by agents. I mean, they couldn't play any bars because they were doing all original stuff.
Yeah.
You know, and our idea of a cover was Whipping Post by the Allman Brothers. You know, well, quite honestly, you know.
That's going to get them on the dance floor.
That's going to get up on the dance floor, yeah. So the guys took a house gig, took up residency at the El Macombo downstairs and put the board on stage, and I'm off to my own devices. What am I going to do? So from working at Power Supply, I met a lot of different musicians. I sold PA systems to the likes of, you know, Gowan, Ronnie Hawkins, Rush bought some gear off of us, and you know, just networking. And I met a band called Stumbling Blind, who to this day I think is one of the best bands that ever came out of Toronto. The late Brian Maxim was the singer. Brian was one of the singers in Moxie after Buzz Sherman died. After Buzz died, Mike Ryanowski got the gig with Moxie. And then after Mike left to form a band called Loverboy, Buzz came back to Moxie, and then Brian Maxim took over as singer for a while. Brian was like Paul Rogers kind of a vocalist, really great, a tremendous singer. And Norm, the guitar player, went on to play with a few different recording acts, and Danny, the drummer, did the last Moxie album, the Moxie album with Mike Reno. He did that album, so it was a great band. It was a really cool.
You mentioned, I think in your piece, that Buzz was offered an AC/DC gig, is that true?
Yeah, when, you can Wikipedia it.
Yeah.
When Moxie, you know, would play the Piccadilly Tube with the Gasworks, and, you know, and you'd go down to Texas to play. They were stars down there. I mean, you'd walk into a music store and you'd see pictures of Robert Plant on the wall, and Jimmy Page, and Buzz Sherman, Earl Johnson. I mean, they were huge rock stars down there. I mean, it was that pocket, you know. And AC/DC was their opening act on their first North American tour.
Wow.
And I wasn't on that tour, but the guys took care of AC/DC. And the one thing about Moxie and Goddo, both always shared really concerning road crews that didn't have egos or attitudes necessarily. They wanted to make the show look right. And one thing that I always had in my mind was the people are spending $9 on a concert ticket, you know, and they better get their $9 worth. So why make the opening act look like a piece of crap or sound like a piece of crap? It just creates bad karma, you know. And they took care of AC/DC very well. And Buzz and Bon became very good friends, and when Bon passed away, you got to keep in mind they weren't really a huge band at the time. Moxie was a lot bigger, and Buzz turned the gig down. It'd be like sort of dating your buddy's girlfriend, you know. It wasn't something he was comfortable with. And unfortunately, a few years later, Buzz would die tragically in a.
So what do you think of now? Moxie's still playing with Earl, and what do you think of these bands doing this 30 years later?
Well, I went and saw them. I just went and saw them last week. I worked a little bit with Nick Walsh, the singer. He was from Slick Toxic, and Nick has a great project called Famous Underground. And when I started doing my Goddo project, I had met Nick up at Sharon Alton's house, and I don't know if you know who Sharon Alton is, but Sharon is the female guitar player in the band Toronto.
Okay, yes, I know.
Who wrote a couple of songs for the band Heart.
Right.
And Sharon's a dear friend of mine. She invited me up to the house. Went up there, and Nick was up there rehearsing. She had a nightclub in the basement of her house. And seriously, like a stage and PA and everything in her house up in Markham. And went in there, and Nick's band was rehearsing with Gene Scarpelli playing guitar, young Gene. And
I remember that band, yeah.
I hadn't seen Gene since he was 4 years of age when I worked with Goddo back in '79.
Yeah.
You know, so it was good seeing him. And I tried to do some stuff for them. I mean, I'm not a manager. I'm almost like a talent scout. I think that would be a good way to describe what I do. With the younger talent, the music business is, believe it or not, there's a lot of bullshit in the music business.
I never heard that before.
Yeah, well, I'm breaking news here. There's a lot of bullshit in the business, and I think that for an example, about 10 years ago, I got offered to go out and road manage a young band, tour manage a young band. I didn't do it. I thought, let these guys go through their own journey, people their own age, and let them find out how messed up the music business all on their own. And to be quite frank with you, in the last 10 years, 15 years, the music industry has changed so drastically. I don't really have my thumb on the pulse of it anymore, because back when Napster was around and it started to all go downhill, I just thought this is the beginning of the end. And I remember being in Dean Cameron's office at Capitol Records one day and waiting out in front for him at minute. I was talking to his secretary, and she had a computer on her desk. And we're all like, wow, that's really something.
Yeah.
We went inside, talked to Dean, and, Dean, where's your computer? Computers. We let the girls play with computers. Computers. And, Kenny and I had a chat about that after we left there. I said, I'm surprised he's taking this technology so lightly. Look at what's happened in the last 20 years to have a computer on your desk. Well, sure enough, the music business is fucked sometimes.
But
I think these young bands need to do it on their own. And they don't need, at that point I was in my 50s.
Yeah.
And even in my late 40s, I had offers to go out. But they don't need some middle-aged guy on the tour bus telling them how fucked up the business is. They got their own set of nonsense to deal with now. Different than some same nonsense with traveling and stuff, but it's almost gone back to the 50s.
Well, that's what I was going to say.
Where it's a single-based orientation. What the youth is missing nowadays, Craig, is the joy of ripping open the cellophane on Led Zeppelin 2 and smelling that vinyl and opening it up and reading where it was recorded and looking at the pictures and getting to know the band.
What was the first record you ever bought?
The first record I ever bought would have been probably Led Zeppelin 1.
Mine was $1 Billion Babies, and I remember the same thing, going and getting this thing, and it opened up, and the dollar bill, the $1 million bill or whatever it was, the $1 billion bill inside, and like all the stuff that came with this packaging that you don't get today. You're right. I mean, it was the thrill of the lining up to get The Wall when it debuted at Sam the Record Man at midnight.
Yeah, well, there's a bit of an age difference between you and me, but not much. But there is, considerable, I guess, when it comes down to music genres and ages or whatever. But they're really missing out on that. And nowadays, if you like a song, the youth, they download it because they like the sound of it. They know nothing about the artist. And if they get so inclined to go deeper and read about it, then you might get a little familiar. But that whole get to know you,
it's gone.
Is gone.
Yeah.
Is gone. And with the record companies not protecting our music, and that's what Lars was upset about with Napster. And with their record company, we gave you our music to hold in trust, to be responsible with it, and you let this happen.
And rightly so, but it's all gone to shit now. I mean, there's nothing you can do anymore. Everything.
That's right.
Because now we've got a group of people that have grown up where everything's free.
I remember we had a guy in our neighborhood. He had money, and he'd go and buy new records, and he'd put them onto cassette tape, and he'd sell them to us if we wanted to buy them for $1 each, right? And I always thought to myself, what an asshole. No, but really, that's just the schoolyard capitalism at its peak there. That was the worst thing we had to worry about back then.
But now it's gone back to the live experience. Now the band actually has to go out there and work the road and build their fan base from square one. And this free stuff is just their promotion thing now.
And there's not too many bands that can do it.
No.
There's not too many bands that can go out and play live because they're not in the studio recording music. They're in the studio creating music. Mm-hmm. And it's not the same process. I mean, I've witnessed firsthand, auto-tune, and what it can do to a singer. And I'm thinking to myself, what a false sense of security, being able to record a record, and it doesn't matter about your vocal performance because they can literally, make you sound good.
Yeah.
And so now when you have to spend, about $250 to get a good seat to see U2, and spend $70 on an $8 T-shirt. It's ridiculous. But in all fairness, a lot of the bands out there are putting on a show, and it costs a lot for the transportation stuff. But I know I've sat down and done the math on what bands are making if it's a successful tour. Mm-hmm. I've talked to Doc McGee, and Doc is famous for managing Bon Jovi back in the 80s when I first met him.
Now Kiss.
And more so Kiss now. And you want to talk about a capitalist.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't even think he, I don't even know if he likes music or not.
No, that's why Gene and him are a match made in heaven there. Yeah.
Yeah, I think if you can get those two in a room together without any microphones on or anything, I think you'd experience a different thing. I don't know the match made in heaven enough, but they're both always.
They both see green the same.
Well, sure,
Yeah.
absolutely,
Yeah.
and I guess there's a place for all that. I've never done it for the dollar.
So going back, you're doing this stuff with Red Rider and stuff back in the day. You started working with Goddo back then too. And were you road managing them, or what was the relationship with Goddo back
Yeah,
then?
I was.
How did that even come to be? How did you hook up with them?
Well, I had met Doug quite a few times. I lived on Pinewood. No, Dougie lived on Pinewood. I lived on Witchwood, around the Bathurst, St. Clair.
Okay,
Forest Hill.
yeah.
And I was working with a band called The Hunt. And The Hunt was the original drummer from Max Webster, Paul Kersey.
Okay.
And some guys from Dillinger, and great band. I mean, if you get a chance to listen to the first Hunt album,
Yeah.
it's a masterpiece. It's incredible. And Doug used to come down to the Piccadilly Tube or whatever and hear me mixing Paul Kersey and go, man, what a great sound. Oh, thanks a lot, Dougie. And, brought Goddo down a couple of times, and I met Greg once or twice, I guess. And Doug and I were, young, single guys, and used to go out and have some fun together, And I was out working with Moxie. And when Moxie broke up, David Bluestein, their directive agent, he used to own the agency group at the time, he liked what I had done with Moxie and parachuted me into the position of road manager with Goddo. I was the only crew member that worked with Goddo that was never hired by Goddo. So my relationship with them wasn't like a buddy, beer drinking, joint smoking kind of relationship. It was, I think Greg had a respect for me because it was his management and his lawyer that brought me in. So I never had any problems. I mean, I know the stories, I know the rumors about Goddo, and I never had one problem with the guys on there at all. So I got the gig road managing the band and doing sound on a few occasions, depending on the gig. 2 active Goddo tours across Western Canada, and they were huge, man. I mean, it was shocking to me to, you play Toronto, the Piccadilly Tube and things like that. Then you'd go to Timmins and, do a small arena gig or whatever. They had their pockets. But as soon as you hit Thunder Bay West, they were stars. I mean, the Winnipeg Playhouse Theatre in Winnipeg, we played there twice on a tour, on the same tour, and one time twice in one day.
Wow.
Did 2 shows. They were huge. That was their second home in Winnipeg. And, the typical gigs out in Western Canada, electrified audiences everywhere they went. And, those guys never rented a tour bus. I couldn't believe it. They traveled in Gino's Chrysler LeBaron, and Gino did most of the driving, and those guys never missed a show. They never missed a gig in all their career. I've talked to their old managers and stuff, and that's one of the things they say about them. They never missed a gig, never late for a gig, never held an audience up, just worked their balls off. But with the money they saved from tour coaches, you see, Greg liked to vibe, right? Greg liked to have the persona of,
Sure.
being a rock star. And in all fairness, I mean, he'd come from playing with Flood.
Yeah.
At the age of 20, he's over in England recording records. Staying in, I think, Richard Branson's mansion at the time.
Oh.
So 20 years of age, that's pretty powerful stuff. And then to come back to Canada and have Richie York, who was the Canadian editor of Billboard and Rolling Stone, and Martin Malhewish, who was an author in his own right. Everybody, sort of stroking his ego and stuff.
So the Motel 6 isn't working for him?
No, well, there was no Motel 6 back then. It was the Queen's Hotel, or it was, the Red Drop-In or something, But no, they like staying in nicer hotels.
Yeah.
And so the crew got to stay in nicer hotels as well. But he had this air to him that he likes the finer things in life. And hats off to you, man. If that's what it takes to get you through the gigs or whatever, go and do it. Go and do it. But hardest working band I never met. But out in Western Canada, man, they were huge. They were huge. And I come back to Ontario, and I tell all my friends, I go, you guys wouldn't believe what goes on with this band out in Western Canada. Same thing with Moxie. As I said, we play the Tube, and then you go down to the States and you play for 15,000 people.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
So did you see Goddo as a standout back then? Did they sort of?
I was pretty pumped to get the gig.
Yeah.
I mean, I worked a bit with the original Moxie, and I came in with the second Moxie, and their record company didn't think Mike Reinowski could sing, so they didn't promote the record at all. You know, they had the iconic Jack Richardson produce the record, which sort of sweetened them up a little bit, made them a bit more commercial, which I thought was a mistake. And they didn't get behind the record. And after 2 tours as 3 tours as a opening act, and a few headline shows in Ontario, Mike went back out west with his tail between his legs. He quit before to save himself the humiliation of getting fired, I think. You know, and they all knew it wasn't working. So Mike went out west, and I went on the road with Goddo, and I ran into Mike and Paul out west, and they were putting a band together called Pretty Boy, and you know, he changed his name from Reinowski to Reno, and the rest is history.
Yeah, it's Paul Dean.
Paul Dean, and he just got ousted from Streetheart.
Now, I thought he was like the founder of Streetheart, wasn't he? Like the guy.
Well, Kenny Shields and him. Well, it doesn't, you know, I mean, it's called mutiny, right?
Yeah.
You know, it doesn't matter. You know?
Yeah.
But he got ousted, and they put Loverboy together. You know. And this is the guy that Paul.
But when you play that first Loverboy record, you can certainly hear like action and a whole lot of great Streetheart songs coming through that thing for sure.
Well, the influence of Paul is all over that.
Yeah.
I mean, no doubt about it. And especially when you have Maddie playing drums, you know, which helped a lot. Now, if you go and see Loverboy, I mean, it is Streetheart with a different singer. I mean, Spiders back playing bass.
Yeah.
And I challenge anybody, even Neil and Geddy, to be as a good a rhythm section as those guys. I mean, those guys are in the pocket and they're just on top of their game all the time. Spider's a great bass player.
Yeah.
Great bass player.
First time I saw Streetheart, I think, was in no Paul Dean. It was in Whitby, I think. They played some little bar in Whitby, and it just blew my socks off. They were just incredible. Spider was just like one of the best bass players I've ever seen.
Right.
And it was just incredible.
Yeah, no, he's great, and a hell of a nice guy.
Yeah.
But you know, there's Loverboy still out there doing it.
But he was with Red Rider too, right?
He did a stint with Red Rider. You see, what happened with Red Rider, it was a funny thing there. It was Red Rider at the beginning for a few albums. And then after that, anybody who wasn't contributing musically or whatever was no longer getting advances or any kind of money at all from Capitol. And so they started using side guys. You know, the keyboard player wasn't getting money, so he said, "I'm out of here." You know, the bass player, Jonesy, you know, and Robby the big drummer, you know, what's going on? It was Kenny and Tom. You know, Kenny was Red Rider, Tom was Tom. And after that deal was done, you know, Capitol, some of the effect of, hey, we need to get a better identity in the United States, like Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers, Huey Lewis and the News, Tom Cochrane Red Rider. Kenny, yeah, sure, you know, okay. So then that went on, you know. And then when that deal came to an end, it was not agreeable to Kenny. You know, it was not agreeable the terms that Capitol was laying out to Kenny what they wanted to do in terms of the way they were going to structure the new deal. And Kenny dug his heels in and said, if it wasn't for me, there'd be no Tom Cochrane. I mean, not that there wouldn't be a Tom. Of course, Tom's a great artist and would have done something else, but you know, this wouldn't be working so well if it wasn't for the both of us, like macaroni and cheese. It works. And so Kenny dug his heels in and went off on his own and, you know, did Gowan and produced Gowan, the Saddle Tramps, a whole bunch of other things. Put a great band together called Big Faith. If anybody loves eclectic music, you should try to find Big Faith. It's Fergus Marsh on Chapman Stick, who played with Bruce Cockburn. Mike Slosky on drums for Bruce Cockburn. Chris Tate, the singer from Chalk Circle.
Okay, yeah.
And Kenny Greer on guitars. And I'm getting goosebumps just talking about it. A killer band. Yeah. Incredible band.
So how did Tom Cochrane get involved with them at the time? Were they?
Well, we were shopping demos. You know, Red Rider was shopping demos to Capitol Records. And Dean Cameron, who was drummer for Tom back in the old Daffodil days and loved Tommy, I was looking for a vehicle for Tommy, a live band.
Oh, okay.
So he brought him down to the Elma Combo. You know, he said, you know, chit chat. They went up north for a week. And within the next few days of being up there, they wrote White Hot, you know, which is an incredible piece of music, you know. Early Red Rider, they were young and unaffected by life. You know, no, but really, you know, and you hear it in Tom's lyrics, I mean, very poetic justice and stuff. there's a funny thing that happens from being a road manager and sound engineer that I've noticed from working so closely with bands.
We lose our innocence. Is that?
Well, no. There's a funny thing that happens with success, because when all of a sudden you start making money, and good money, before you were wondering how you're going to be able to afford macaroni and cheese and peanut butter, but you're writing your songs. Your songs all of a sudden are interrupted because your lawyers are calling you, your accountants are calling you. You're making millions of dollars, and you've got to keep a handle on this. And now you've got a manager, and you've got, your record company. You've got bookkeepers, you've got accountants, you got a tour manager, you got a road manager. Everybody with access to your money. All these people have access to your money. So all of a sudden, life changes. And your views on things change. And it just takes a couple of bad experiences, which happen in the music business. It's not all kumbaya. Sometimes people get darn cross at you and decide to.
Yeah, it's art and commerce too.
Rip you off. So they start to change. And then from life experiences that you're experiencing when you do have money, then your songs take a different approach to what you're writing about. And I think if you follow an artist from the very beginning. To the latest recordings or whatever, and you listen to the lyrical content, it's usually quite funny to see what they're coming up with. Unless, of course, they go back and revisit a song that they wrote 5 albums ago that didn't make it to the record, and now they're putting it on a record. But you know what I'm saying?
Well, even
you're a parent.
Joe Strummer was saying that too with the Clash. Though when the Clash started to get too big, it just didn't fit where his sensibilities were, and writing songs about poverty and the working class just didn't work anymore. You can't do that when you grow up. And that's the problem with music today too, is we never expected these rock and roll guys to grow up. They were supposed to be done and gone before then.
Well, I just had a discussion about that too. Rock and roll is still in its first generation. I mean, the term rock and roll as the world knows it came to be in existence in the 50s, right? And there's still guys from the 50s out there playing.
Yeah.
And who has the right to tell them when it's time to hang it up?
No, but I mean, they thought so too, right?
But who has the right to do that? The only people who have the right to do that is the people that are. No, I disagree with that too. The people that are buying the music or when they stop attending shows,
then it's time to quit.
Right?
Yeah.
Then you know that you're not the flavor of the month anymore, or whatever, or that may be the wrong term, flavor of the month, when you're just not there anymore, when it's just expired. Look at Tony Bennett.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, give me a break. Recording with Lady Gaga and stuff. The guy's got so much class and he's got so much talent. It's nobody has the right to tell Ozzy Osbourne he can't go out there and do it. Nobody has the right to tell Goddo they can't go out there and do it. I mean, none of these bands. Now, you ask me about Moxie. The problem with Moxie is there's only Earl. Mm-hmm. It's not Moxie anymore. Earl Johnson from Moxie or something. The Earl Johnson band may be more appropriate. I think. I don't know. If you got 4 or 5. If you got 3 guys from a 5-piece band, then you're still somewhat legit. Mm-hmm. You can still do it, but I think you got to find a fine line at one point when to let the name go. And I mean, there's been so many members that have wandered through the doors of Moxie. It's, but listen, it was a great band. I went and saw them. I mean, Nick Walsh is delivering the goods.
Yeah,
he's not Buzz Sherman.
Yeah.
There is no Buzz Sherman. I mean, Buzz was the singer for that band. Nick in his own right does his thing.
Nick's fantastic though, yeah.
Yeah. Nick's a great singer, great front man. Does the thing with the hair and everything. I mean, that's his signature. But it's not Moxie. So for me, an old jaded guy to go out there and go, Greg Godovitz has yet to grasp the fact that he thinks that he is Goddo. Okay, Godovitz was nicknamed Goddo by Richie York. That was his nickname, Goddo. And when it came time to name the band, his new band, Richie York said, "Why don't you call it Goddo?" So they had to add another D to it because people are going Goddo and all that. What's going on with that? He never understood that, or he does understand. He ignores it, and I'm finding it hard to find my words because I don't want to give too much about my movie away. It's like Coca-Cola. They have the secret recipe and it works. And people don't want to go and see another version of Goddo. They don't want to see a 5-piece version of Goddo with Steve Shelsky playing guitar from Coney Hatch and Mr. Anger playing keyboards. It's not Goddo. Goddo is Doug Inglis, Gino Scarpelli, and Greg Goddo. And I don't know if Greg, he's a real talented guy, Greg. I mean, he's a real talented songwriter. I mean, I think in my movie treatment, which you've been privy to see, I think that I use the term that he always yearned to sing like Paul McCartney and write like John Lennon. And I think the guy did pretty good. He was his own worst enemy with his mouth and stuff, because he was sort of in that era of the punk music scene, but he wasn't really a punk artist. But because he was a little bit older to be a punk, he still wanted to be a part of it. So I term Goddo as a polished punk band, commercial punk band with the attitude and stuff. But Greg doesn't like the fact, in my opinion, that Doug and Gino have fans. He wanted to be the guy that stood out. I'm not putting a band together with old buddies. I'm the boss, and you guys.
Yeah, but we've seen that. I mean, you see it in Goddo, you see it in Kiss, you see it in the Eagles, you see it in so many different bands today that basically do the same thing. That I'm the songwriter, I'm the guy. Who cares about these?
That's all well and fine. But the guys in Kiss and the guys in their bands are getting well paid, and they're not being shit on. Okay, not saying that Greg shit on Gino and Doug. But they weren't treated with the respect I don't think that they deserved. When I got the idea.
Yeah, so let's go to there.
We're going to talk about the movie, I'm sure here. So, 2009, I had just finished working with Doug Inglis. I'd come back. I moved back to Toronto, and
From where? Where were
I was living down in Windsor.
Okay.
I had retired for a few years up in Owen Sound with my wife and kids, and my brother Bill, my late brother, used to live up in Wyerton, and I was living out west with my family. So when I moved back to Ontario, I couldn't afford to live in Toronto, and I didn't want my kids to be in Toronto. It wasn't the same Toronto as I grew up with. So Bill said, "Why don't you move up Owen Sound area?" Wonderful. So that's what I did. After being there for 9 years, I had done a concert. I did this concert every year out in Western Canada, Classic Rock Festival in High River, Alberta. I was a production manager. And the last year that I did it, the promoter had broken up with his partners, and I lost $260,000. I had signed away $260,000. I signed for the PA and stuff, and then they never got paid, so I had to pay it all off. So I took a gig down in Windsor, Ontario, and with a sound-alike production company, Band World, who's no longer in existence here in Toronto. But I went down there and did some work for Bob Spencer, and just working down there. My wife and I broke up, got divorced. Well, not yet, but we'd broken up. And I moved back to Toronto. So as soon as I moved back to Toronto, hooking up with my old buddies, and I phoned Doug up. I said, "Hey, I'm back in town. Well, come on down and see this band I'm working with on Thursday nights." "Well, what's that?" He goes, "That's a thing called the Dylan Tree." I said, "Okay." So I went down and I said, "What do you guys do?" He goes, "Well, we play Bob Dylan." Oh boy. I'm going to fall asleep. I love Bob's music.
Yeah.
And I thought I was going to go down there and see five guys. "Hey, what are you doing?" All this. I was going to drink and fall asleep. Went down there, Craig, and these guys are 5-part vocal harmonies, and they sound like the Eagles. Ted Boomer, the promoter for Blues Fest, promoter of the year, 2009, I think he was voted promoter of the year down in Memphis. He summed it up best about the Dylan Tree. He had the Dylan Tree down there at the festivals, and he said the best way to describe the Dylan Tree is, you got lots of people covering the music of Bob Dylan, Jimi Hendrix, and the list goes on. He goes, it's like the Eagles have done an album of Bob Dylan stuff. These guys were just phenomenal. I went and saw them a few times, and I finally, from working with Band World, I was doing a lot of corporate shows, for the Stronach family and stuff.
Sure.
Like Ashley do and Honda, and, just the corporate shows. Being the production manager, bringing the sound, the lights, designing the stage, and appeasing everybody, and doing a good show and leaving. And I said to those guys, I said, you're missing your mark here. There's money to be made out there. And musicians, like having their hands held and led. And they said, well, I think it's something you can do, help us out. I said, sure. So I ended up making an EPK for them, electronic press kit, which I thought was pretty cool. And somehow or another, Sun Television got a hold of it, and they offered me a television show. And I thought we were going to go in and do it in a sound stage, and I thought this will be great promotion for the band, and I'll hook them along, soft seat theaters and what have you. And that, the Sun TV slid a check across the desk right there, and they paid for a show up front. The catch was, I had to find a theater and produce it myself. I wasn't going into a soundstage. So I had done that up in Markham Theater. I gave all the proceeds to the Sick Kids Hospital, Sick Kids Foundation. I had no way of advertising. I had no money. So I got a hold of the Sick Kids Hospital and I said, look, if you put a note or an article in your internal newsletters that goes out to your doctors and surgeons, who I thought the intelligentsia would be right in line with Dylan.
With Dylan, yeah.
You know, lawyers, doctors, lawyers. I mean, artists. I mean, but you know, that they would really appreciate his music. Yeah. And to go to a soft seat theater to see something like that. Sold out 3/4 of the theater, and that gave me a good audience, and gave all the money to the Sick Kids Foundation. And during that process, I was talking to Dougie, going, you know, whatever happened with Goddo? You know, and Dougie's pretty tight-lipped, you know, doesn't want to talk about, you know, you don't want to wash your dirty laundry in public. And the Dylan Tree Show came out on May 9th, 2009, and it did extremely well up against hockey, you know. And I suggested to them, I said, for your next viewing, which is, you know, you only have one more, could we put it on after 60 minutes? Again, my thought being the intelligentsia that would watch 60 minutes. During 60 minutes, a commercial, you know, next the Dylan Tree, and it went through the roof. So they offered me, Sun TV offered me either 2 hours or 2 1 hours. They said, we like what you do, you know, carry it on.
With different bands or different projects?
Yes, yeah, whatever. It was carte blanche. I didn't have to get a green light from them. They just said, whatever you want to do. I could have put a dancing sack of potatoes on stage and they would have taken it, you know. Can I talk a little bit about a personal thing that happened to me?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. I was feeling pretty good about what was going on. This was in May of 2009, and then the second
Just
one,
so you know, you're here because we want people to know about you, too. I mean, this is what this is all about, you know?
May 2009, you know, I was really happy. We knew that in September we were going to do the second one, you know, they were going to put on after 60 minutes, and they had said to me, we want you to do 2 more. I said, great, wait on. So that was going to be done in the next spring. August 23rd, 2009, I was on my way home from dropping off a rental car, and I dropped off at a restaurant in the west end of Toronto. I don't think it's proper to name the place, but I dropped off at a place in the west end of Toronto, which happened to have an off-track betting facility hooked onto it, and a doorway going in between the places so they could get food and drinks from the other side. And I'd stopped in with my buddy, who had given me a lift to return my rental car. Had a couple of beers, he had some chicken wings, and when the off-track betting got out, these 3 guys burst through the front door, and they were clad in black from head to toe. I don't remember anything about it, really. I mean, my mind, I was so freaked out. One guy ran back into the cage where the girls were putting the money away from the off-track betting. One of them jumped over the bar, and the other one stayed at the door. And at first, my buddy and I thought it was a bit of a joke. You know, these 3 guys are just running in and, you know. And the one guy jumped on the bar and said, hey, there's people here. Because they all thought we were gone. They all thought the place was empty, just for the staff. The guy from the door came over, grabbed my friend, threw him down on the ground, held a gun to his head. I'm freaking. I'm thinking they're going to blow his brains out. I'm going to see my friend's brains get blown out. Other guy slid over the bar. You know, and back then, I mean, I'm what, 15 pounds overweight right now, but back then I was probably about 25, 35 pounds overweight. I was a big guy, and maybe intimidating. And this guy, you know, gave me a bit of a crack across the head with the gun.
Wow.
And down I went, and you know, one foot in my throat, and I passed out. And when I came out of that, for about the next 2 weeks, I was drinking every day to try to sleep. I couldn't sleep.
So when you came out of it, they were gone. It was over.
They were
done?
gone.
Oh yeah. So
yeah, they brought, you know, the staff and my buddy had got me awake. They had their foot on the one guy had his foot on my throat, so I passed out. You know, and through my doctor's help and through a bunch of other people, I you know, I was getting through it, but I was drinking a lot. And I just gotten divorced, and you know, just everything was falling apart around me. And I didn't know what I was doing. I knew I had this show coming up in September. I was looking forward to seeing, you know, the Dylan's 3-second show. And I knew that I could be doing this thing in the springtime, but I wasn't even focused on it. I couldn't organize my soccer. And anybody who knows me knows I'm very anal, and everything has its place, and it goes like this.
Yeah.
There's a rhythm to my madness, and
everything just fell apart.
It just fell apart.
Yeah.
I mean, I wasn't functioning at all. And on Halloween night,
Did you feel a fear? Was it something like that?
it was fear. It was anxiety. It was
No control?
no self-worth.
Yeah.
It didn't feel like a man. I thought, why didn't I stand up to these guys? all these things going through your head, and why is all this happening?
Yeah.
Like, what the fuck have I done to deserve this?
Yeah.
You know, and I guess around the beginning of October, my buddies took me up because I'm an acquaintance of Alice Cooper, and I worked with Alice quite a bit. And my buddy says, "Come on out for a night. You know, you got to see this guy does an Alice Cooper show. You'll love it." You know, I walked through the front door of the place, and I mean the mannerisms of the guy. He had Alice
Nick?
down to it. No. His name is Rob, and he had a band called Second Coming.
I put that band together.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
Oh,
Where'd you see them?
at the Hollywood on the Queensway.
I put that band together. I actually found Robby Cooper, and yeah, he used to live up north at the time. Yeah, I
I
formed.
think he was
that
out in
band.
Ajax or something.
Yeah, he's in Ajax now, or Whitby or something like
when
that.
I went out to meet him.
Yeah.
Anyways, a nice guy, and had it down. And I was doing the Dillatry at the time. I said to Robbie, I said, look, if you want to turn this into a theater show, I said, you're going to need a different guitar player. You're going to need a different. They had a Brian.
Yeah, I know.
Brian.
Yeah.
Nice guy.
Yeah.
But it just wasn't working. It wasn't the right thing. And the drummer, I think, owns a little bar on Royal York Road.
That's why I left. That was right after I left with these guys.
Okay.
Yeah.
Small world,
Yeah.
eh? Yeah, brother. Wow. I knew there's a lot of synchronicity between us. But anyways, and I had to leave that night. I wasn't feeling very comfortable in the crowd. I used to walk tall. I wasn't walking tall anymore, and drinking on antidepressants and just trying to cope, but not knowing what I was going to do. And then Doug Inglis called me up and said, look, man, we're all worried about you. We're worried about what could happen by accident, and we're worried about what could happen by design. I think a lot of people thought I might pull the pin. And quite frankly with you, the thought had entered my mind about suicide because I was not in a good way.
So you're medicating, you're drinking, you're doing.
Yeah, and I wasn't in a good way. But my doctor, who I credit with him as saving my life, and my dog Daisy. I think if I was void of animals in my life, I probably would have offed myself if I had been totally isolated. But I pulled it together. And Doug called me up and said, Goddo and I are playing down the lakeshore, Halloween night. We're going to call it Goddo. Why don't you come down? In fact, he says, how about if I stay at your place that night? He said, that way I don't have to drink.
So you're still in the middle of your funk at this time.
Oh, I'm deep into the funk. I'm deep into my funk. I didn't know what was going on. I wasn't myself.
Yeah.
So I said, okay, let's do it. So he comes over and, we go to the gig and do the gig that night. It's okay. It wasn't Goddo. Steve Shelsky was a great guitar player. Mm-hmm. Steve's a very talented guy. Brad Lovett, Mr. Anger on keyboards, and Greg and Dougie. And places, doing good business and stuff. It's Halloween night, it's a Saturday night, everybody's having a good time. And Doug comes back to my place and, have a couple of beers. And next day, drive him down to get his drum kit in his van. We go into the bar and his drums are set up on the stage there. It's got the little Goddo logo on the bass drum. And I have fixed right to it. I'm just looking at it in this bar and I'm going, fuck, how does it get to this point? Would Rush have let this happen? If Rush didn't have the success that they had, would they be sitting here the next week? I don't think so, There's certain bands that just sort of go away gracefully. And, this wasn't going away gracefully. And the bartender put 2 beers right on the bar as soon as we walked in, and people started gathering around us. Hey, Dougie, I remember you from this. Blah, blah, blah. Mm-hmm. John, I remember you. This guy actually remembered me from Moxie, from getting him backstage passes.
The bartender?
No, this patron, yeah. I had 2 sips of my beer, Craig. And I put the beer down, and I said, Dougie, I gotta go. He said, yeah. I said, you okay? He goes, yeah. And it was like Bruce Springsteen singing about glory days, right? They're all standing around there. I had to get out. And I got in my car, and I'm not crazy. Well, we're all crazy to a certain point, I think. It's a matter of keeping your oars in the water so the crazy waves don't come over the sides of the boat sometimes. But I'm driving back to my house, and it's like a conversation I'm having with myself. What do I have to do to feel good again? What do I have to do to get back to where I look forward to getting up in the morning? What do I have to do? My brain has been injured by this traumatic event. They call it post-traumatic stress disorder or something, I had a layman's term for it. Fucked up.
Yeah.
I was fucked up. My brothers, family, friends, they all knew it. They could all see it in me. I wasn't the same. And when I got in my driveway, I thought, I'm going to throw these antidepressants away. I threw them, I flushed them down the toilet. I had a couple of bottles of red wine in the house. I gave that to my neighbor, gave the rest of the beers to my buddy next door. And I thought, I'm going to take 10 days off. I'm going to take 10 days off and just see if I can get my head cleared up. And it was 10 days of hell. because you're not supposed to just quit antidepressants.
yeah,
Apparently, you're supposed to wean yourself off them. Which
You did this all yourself.
I did this all myself. Yeah. I mean, my doctor, he didn't know I was doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And if he had, he would have said, well, here's what you're supposed to do. I just made the decision, I'm going to go into a reclusive mode here and get my shit together.
Wow.
Or not. I was prepared for anything. And after 10 days, 11 days, I'm like, yeah, okay, I mean, my apartment was spotless. And I just kept busy.
Yeah.
I had to.
Yeah.
I was like, okay. And Dougie and my friends, Kenny Greer, they're all noticing a big difference. Well, man, you seem a lot better. I'm like, yeah, I feel good. And somebody had given me an advanced copy of the Anvil movie. And so I'm sitting down watching it, and I paused it about 20 minutes into it. I looked up and I saw Greg, like my flat screen's there, and my shirt went there, and I see Greg Goddovich's book, Travels with My Amp. And I put the movie on hold, but I should backtrack a little bit by saying, about 2 years before that, I had met with Greg Godovich. I had an idea for a radio show that I wanted to do called the Soundcheck Radio Hour, which I wanted to produce, and get Greg to interview all these people and produce a show. I went down and saw Greg. He was playing a little solo act, and he started to laugh. And his keyboard player, Bob Reed, came over to the table. He said, tell Bob what you want. I told him. He said, Johnny, we start our show next week on CFR.
Yeah, I was going to say.
It's called Rock Talk. The very next week. So again, synchronicity, right? I'm like, okay, I'm just missing the boat here. So I was watching this Anvil movie. I saw Greg's book, which I never read. I had never read his book because he told me I wasn't in it. So anyways, I never read the book. And I knew Greg well enough to know that, it's probably going to be exaggerated, but, I just never read the book. I picked up the phone, I called Doug, and I said, I want to do a documentary. Now keep in mind, I had just done the Dillon Tree with Doug. I saw these guys at a place called Axis on Dundas, the Dillon Tree, and took them from there and had them in the Algonquin Theater, where we did a test run with the movie, and I designed a rear video screen montage and stuff. And then we did the big show at the Markham Theater. I had them on the festival, so Doug knew that what my capabilities were. Yeah. So when I said to Dougie, I said, I want to do a documentary on Goddo, because he knew I had the 2 hours coming up with Sun TV. You drinking again? Right? I said, no, I'm not drinking again. Are you serious? I said, yeah. He goes, what about Gino? And I've been working with Gino. I've been up to Gino's house. Gino was in a bad way. Gino was addicted to Oxycontin because of a motorcycle accident. The doctors had put him on that. And unfortunately, he had a love with crack cocaine. And Gino was in rough shape. But I've been going by his house, because again, he's one of the guys I got caught up with when I moved back to Toronto. I was taking him food over to his house and take over some wine. We'd sit down and I'd have a beer and he'd have some wine. I never realized how bad a shape he was in, but I was working with him, getting him healthy. He said, well, you better call Godovich. So I called Greg up. Greg, are you drinking again? Same thing. And what the fuck do you know about making a documentary? Fair enough.
Was that a big convince job you had to do there, or?
Well, no. I mean, Greg's always again. If this can turn into something, then okay, let's see what happens. So I said, I'll call you back. I'm going to do it. So I proceeded to make a few phone calls to old managers and old people that worked with the band. I said, I'm thinking about doing this. Would you participate? Oh yeah, absolutely. I sent out an email to all my business associates. I'm thinking about doing. I'm going to do a documentary on the band Goddo. And Greg Pappas from E1 was the first one to respond with 2 words: very interesting. No, very interested. So I talked to Gino, talked to Doug, and talked to their old manager, Kim Kelly. Kim was going to get the funding and stuff that I needed besides my money that I was going to get from Sun TV. There's other grants you can get, and he was going to take care of that. He dropped the ball on that. That never happened, but that's a story for another time. I said, yeah, I'm going to do a reunion concert, and I'm going to put microphones in front of your faces for 2 weeks, follow you around to Doug's house. What have you been doing? What have you been doing? Edit, put it out. Sun TV called me and said, we're not going to be proceeding with this anymore. We're going to an all-news format in the new year. So, sorry. So I upped the ante. Now I've got no money. I've got no government grants yet. And I'm putting myself in debt. I went and got all, rented the better cameras and what have you. And I designed the stage down at the Sound Academy and hired a great crew to work with me. And put the show on followed the guys around for a couple of weeks.
Was it your idea to do the show first? Was the show part of the whole documentary, or were you doing the show first and then you were going to...
I was going to use segments of the show, like after we'd interview the guys,
Yeah.
I would cut back to a bit of the concert, right? Just to, they hadn't played together in years. Didn't know how good or bad it was going to be.
So you didn't plan on being a separate entity or anything?
No, I always thought that, when I realized that Sun TV was no longer involved and I was going to have to carry this on my own, and I'd already told the guys this is what I'm doing, so I'm not about to change, I'm not going to let them down. Mm-hmm. They'd gotten together and, they were rehearsing, and they had to do a rehearsal with Gino because Gino wasn't that great, the last time they had played. So, Gino passed the audition and went and did the concert. It was a tremendous success on many fronts. Goddo walked into the Sound Academy in the afternoon, thought he was playing in the small room at the back. I had no idea that I'd rented the big stage, and he walks in, there's a catwalk out in front and video screens in behind, and Greg walks in, and he's on a trajectory away from the stage and walking by the soundboard, and he goes, oh, this is a nice looking setup, man. He goes, who the fuck's playing here tonight? And the guy goes, well, you're Greg Goddo, aren't you? He goes, yeah. He goes, well, you are. And Greg tells the story, he drops his guitar, and goes, they did this for us?
Wow.
So it was a tremendous night. That's all I can say about it. I'm so glad I did it, So for the next 2 weeks, Greg stayed in town and went to different locations with him and interviewed him and interviewed Doug and Gino. But we're sitting there after about a week and the phone's ringing. Hey, we want to book Goddo gigs. Greg's saying, oh, maybe we should do this again. And I said, well, you know what? I said, if you want to do it, I said, I'll put the money up and I'll follow you guys around.
How long was your intended production schedule initially?
Well, we started filming May 23rd. And I figured I'd be done by about June 15th, and then go into editing and, whatever we're going to do with it, we're going to do with it. So Greg said, well, maybe we should look at going out on the road. So we talked to Doug and Gino, and they were apprehensive because of the way that, if you want to get some dirt on Goddo, you're not going to get it here from me right now. Read Greg's book, because he's quite open and honest in there about it. But Greg and Doug and Gino were concerned with the way they might be treated and the way the finance...
They just didn't want to relive past experiences.
That's right, yeah. JFK didn't go around the block twice. He didn't pull around the... Hey, can you go a little bit slower and put the top down, they got him on the first shot, right, So, anyways, I followed them around for 8 months. And I'm thinking to myself, why are they playing such shitholes? So I phoned up Ralph James of the agency group, and I said, Ralph, are you interested in booking Goddo? No. Oh, Feldman, no. I'm going, what the fuck is up here? Some people are telling me, well, Greg's got a bad reputation out there. I'm, well, how bad can a reputation be where people, look, there's a documentary being made about these guys. That's a selling tool. As far as I'm concerned. But again, everybody's looking at me going, what the fuck do you know about doing a documentary?
Yeah.
Okay. So after 8 months of following these guys around and seeing what they were doing, Doug and Gino had enough already, and they sat me down, and I had just come back from making what I call a sizzle reel or a broadcaster reel. I think I showed you that, the 7-minute one, I had done that up, and I said, look, if you guys want me to, I'd be willing to represent you guys in a pseudo fashion to the agents and promoters and see if I can help you along with this and get you a proper agent, a proper manager, similar to what Anvil's done. Because Anvil's a great band at what they do, the heavy metal vein. I mean, they're really good at it. And Goddo's a little bit more of a wider spectrum of music, and they were still playing great. So I thought, this is a no-brainer. So I started representing the band and trying to get some dates, and Feldman wouldn't do it, agency wouldn't do it. I talked to Doug and Gino, and they said, we're not going to do any more dates. We're not happy with the way we're being treated. So I went and talked to Goddo, and I said, look, Doug and Gino would like to do this, but they want clarity and respect and, open books. And Greg was working on his solo project. I had sort of reinvented Greg's career without really knowing it. I thought Greg would be really excited about maybe reinventing Goddo, but it's all about Greg, because he's the talent, the writer.
Right.
So Greg wanted to utilize what I was doing to better his solo career. So I talked to Greg on Doug and Gino's behalf, and he pretty much told me, he said, I'm not interested in doing any Goddo gigs, John. There's no more Goddo albums left in me. And I think Greg was feeling, it didn't happen before. It didn't work under his direction. and he never thought I could work again, so why bother? But you know what? I'll do the odd Goddo week if you want to book it and film it. That's fine. After half a year, he called me up and said, "Tell the guys I want a meeting." You know, his solo career wasn't going that well, so they all met out at Phase 1. They came in to look at my rough edits of the concert film. I wanted them to hear my mix because Greg had produced every single Goddo record, with the exception of Terry Brown, but even he had his finger in that one. And I quite honestly thought that I was going to have to remix the whole thing, right? Exact opposite. All three of them just sat there and said, "Fuck, that's the best sounding Goddo record we've ever had." So I was quite pleased. Their old sound man, Bruce Duncan, was there at the screen. I hadn't seen him in, God, 25, 30 years, and he was the guy giving me a lot of pointers what sounded.
Yeah.
So it was really nice having him there to see what I had done, you know? And they were there to meet with Mike Mandel, Dr. Mike Mandel. And anybody who doesn't know who Dr. Mike Mandel is out there, they should check out drmikemandel.com or whatever. Incredible man, hypnotist, mentalist, motivational speaker, smart guy. He's mentioned in the song Pretty Bad Boy. You know, Greg's line is, "I can't read your mind because I'm no Mike Mandel." You know, but anyways, Mike goes in to mediate. He's my Henry Kissinger. He's going to go in there and mediate between Greg and Doug and Gino. And you know, Greg, you know, it's probably best that you don't get involved with the business just because it doesn't work that well for you. And, you know, he agreed with Doug and Gino and Mike. Okay, well, let's see what you guys can do. And to speed it all up, I mean, I got the concert film on Super Channel. I had them, they played Calgary for the first time in 30 years. I was motivated. I mean, Feldman and the agency wasn't doing it. Thinking to myself, fuck, you know, I've got, as a road manager, I made all these friends with promoters and stuff, and if what I'm doing makes sense, they'll maybe give me a shot at it. And sure enough, they were all interested. They played, not huge gig rate, but it was 1,200 seats. And they hadn't played Calgary in 30 years. They sold it out in an hour and a half. Promoter was flipping out. I mean, the band just made just under 18 grand. You know, I mean, they never made that kind of dough, split up and put it in their pockets. Same thing in Winnipeg. Went back to Winnipeg. I was dying for the band to play Winnipeg because I'd done it with them when I was road managing the band, and I knew what I could do there. And I assigned a band from there. Chris Burke Gaffney had a band called The Pumps in Orphan back in the 70s and 80s, and Chris is responsible for the career of Chantal Krasiavik. He got her charted. Chris is a great writer, great performer. He had the Chris Burke Gaffney band, who I signed with Ray Daniels and SRO Anthem. They called the band the Deadbeat Honeymooners, which is and again, you know, a great band if you ever get a chance to listen to their music. So I phoned Chris up. I said, "Where should I play in Winnipeg with Goddo? The Burton Cummings Theater, or you know, what should I do? Or is there a big rock room that might be a better idea to sort of reintroduce them to the drinking crowd and stuff?" He said, "Yeah." He said, "You want to play the Oak Room?" He said, "Streetheart plays there. You know, we play there the odd time, and all, you know, head pins." And I said, "Okay." So I called the guy up, and we're that close to doing a deal. And the agent who does the paper for the room, you know, the buyer called the agent, said, "I got to bring Goddo in here." And this guy's his nose was out of joint because he wasn't getting a piece of it. He advised the guy, "Oh, you know, those guys are bad news." And so a year goes by. And Goddo was having their own internal problems. You know, it's like herding kittens. I was trying to keep them all together, you know. And Gino had gone through rehab and stuff, so he's now clean. No Oxycontin. He'd kicked the crack about a year before the concert, so Gino was looking great and playing like a motherfucker again. So the guys are out there turning over, and still Feldman and the agency won't do anything for them. Still won't do it, right? So I'm frustrated, and I'm thinking to myself, okay, what am I going to do?
So how he left a pretty bad taste in people's mouths then, I
guess so.
Yeah, I mean, if that sort of thing.
He didn't play well with others. Back in the 70s, into the early 80s, he had the Ray Daniels camp with Gowan and Rush and Wireless and Ian Thomas and all those guys, Max Webster. And then you had the Dixon and Pro Pass with Toronto and Triumph, and they had their little cliques and stuff, you know, and those management companies dealt with the same agencies, but they're all sort of in bed together, and everybody's sort of getting along. But Godovitz, when he put Goddo together, didn't deal with any of those people. He did his own thing in Montreal, and then he hooked up with another management company that had nothing to do with that clique. And the new management was perceived as sort of English bullies. They had a long John Baldry, and they sort of had attitudes. But they did stuff for Goddo. It was starting to move and shake, So, anyways.
So what do you do with them now? They have this big success.
Yeah, so I'm sitting there going, okay, well, what am I doing? So Canada Music Week, I'm sitting down at the Royal York Hotel with Greg. He's in town doing some business for a recording studio. He's gotten a job managing a recording studio in Calgary. So he's in town doing that. Plus his girlfriend at the time had a solo record out. Excuse me. And I run into Lips and Rob from Anvil. And we sit down and have a chat. And he says, yeah, John. He said, we hear about this documentary. He goes, right on, brother. They used to open for Goddo all the time, right? Which I'm going to get around to interviewing them for this documentary as well. I can't do it until I get my completion funds. But anyways, I said, I got to take this to the States. He goes, you're absolutely right. He said, Goddo and Anvil are very similar in the ways that the agents don't give a shit about us. Canada is a big city when it comes to the music industry. It's a big village. Yes, we're going to do this. We're going to go down to Los Angeles. There were some struggles. Dougie and Greg both had some personal issues that were holding the band back, that were putting me in a position where I didn't feel like saying to the industry, they're all good to go. They're all clean and healthy and positive, and some nonsense going on still, some internal struggling for power and everything else, So it was all set. We were going to go and do it, and we screened the concert film in Toronto in October of last year, sorry. And then we did a thing out in Winnipeg with it, and we screened it out there, and then the guys would play a show the next night, the second time back into Winnipeg, and things were starting to move. And Greg, all of a sudden, decided that he wanted to take control and, lead the ship again, Well, the problem was for me that there was no band. There was a film.
Mm-hmm.
That's what this was all about. This was about the film, and if I could get the management and an agent, then that's when it would take over. But by Greg's interrupting the process, he was messing with my situation, and Doug wasn't happy about it, and Gino wasn't happy about it, and E1 wasn't happy about it, and it just calm down. Everybody's got to calm down here.
But your goal was to do a movie, not to put Goddo back together. That was...
Well, yeah, no, but I put them back together to make the movie.
Yeah.
I put them.
But you wanted to do a movie.
Yes.
You weren't there to build Goddo's second career, really.
Well, I was, because nobody else would do it, and I was capable of doing it. But the ultimate goal was to get them a manager and an agent, and have cameras filming me, get them a manager and agent, and then hopefully get them to go on tour with Aerosmith or something.
Right.
And I live by the adage, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. So a no is better than a maybe to me.
Of course, yeah.
And I figured that out a long time ago in bars when I buy a girl a drink, and after a bar tap was getting up and she said no, I just okay, well, maybe, no, that didn't work for me. So that was my goal, and that was what was mediated with Mike Mandel and the guys, and Johnny's going to go and do this. I'm not a manager. I don't want to be a manager.
But you're a facilitator.
I like getting along with the artist and stuff. I am an artist now. This is the whole thing that's come around in my life, right? So I told Dougie and Gino, I said, I think I'm going to be done after New Year's. I got them up to Dog Hill, Rock Pile, and I said, Dougie, you're not fulfilling your business obligations here, and you're drinking too much, and Greg's being, difficult, and I just, So I drove him to the airport. We played New Year's Eve. I drove him to the airport. And I told him on the way there, I said, I treat him out a little bit, but nicely. I'm not I don't do confrontation very well. And I said to Greg, like I mentioned earlier in this conversation, Craig, it's too bad you don't know me. I said, because if you knew me, Greg, this wouldn't be happening. Your discontent would be a thing of the past. You'd be going, man, this is great. You three guys should be on the phone with each other, well, hey John, we got an idea. What do you think of this idea? Blah, blah. Moving this thing forward, participating. So I said, you guys really need a break. Doug needs some help, and we left at the airport without even knowing what's going on. He went to shake my hand. We shook hands. I pulled him in. I gave him a hug, and went our separate ways. Third week of January, I get a phone call from Kim Kelly, the same guy who was supposed to take care of all my grants, who never did. Goddo's old manager from the 1970s. He's the second manager coming deserted into the middle of the night on them, slinked away to Los Angeles. Greg had approached Kim to be his manager, to sort out his publishing and to get his taxes back in order and to try to get his solo record going.
Now that things are revitalized because of everything.
Well, yeah, but Goddo looked like it was on the rear burner. I mean, nothing was going on. So Kim called me up, and Kim was concerned that I was on the fence about doing anything. You know, I didn't want to take the band down to Los Angeles or anything. He said, I'm going to come in Toronto and see you. I said, okay. So he came in, stayed at my place for a couple of days. We went out to Doug's house, and we had to get the police involved out at Doug's house. We had to get Dougie contained. He was not in a good way at all. We dropped a dime on him. We had to get him taken into a facility. And he said, look, let's get Dougie fixed up. He goes, he said, John, you've worked at this. This is 4 years of your life. You know, you follow through with it. Let's get Dougie clean. He goes, Greg will stay out of your face. I've already told Greg. You know, he had a good, close relationship with Greg. He was his personal manager. And Kim knew me, you know, and he said, John's got your best interest at heart. He goes, think about it, Greg. He hasn't asked you for money. He's been putting money in your pockets. Mm-hmm. He's financed this thing himself. Well, I mean, I got some private investment money, but, you know, studios and stuff are helping me out. So he said, you know, he convinced Greg and talked to Dougie and Gino, and they said, we love what John's doing. You know, so Dougie was going to go get some help, and I went off with Doug by myself. I said, man, I can't do this. I can't come back into Goddo business. You're a liability. You got to go get some help. I said, when you go get some help, I'll get on the phones and I'll start booking shows. We missed the summer before from shows because Doug was involved in a car accident, drunk, third impaired, in January of the last year, and you know, couldn't book any shows. His court wasn't until June, and his lawyer is saying he could be doing time. So that's when I decided to do the concert film, like to do all that stuff. So anyways, Doug understood what I was saying, and he agreed to go in. So as soon as he went in, I got to work. And I got a hold of the RBC Ottawa Blues Fest, which some people might remember 2 years ago, the stage collapsing on Cheap Trick there, and Kiss was there the year before, and big festival, 3 stages, 3 headline stages. And I cut a deal with the promoter without an agent. He had been following me because every year I was calling him to promote a gig, and now he's seeing results. Right. He's seeing that, you know, I got this concert film in my hand, and he's read reviews that we've screened it in places. So I get on the phone, you know, we get the gig booked. I'm going, okay, July 13th. Now, what can I do around that? I get a hold of E1. And I said, can we do a theatrical screening like we did in Toronto and Winnipeg and Barrie? Can we do one in Ottawa before the Ottawa gig? Yeah, absolutely. Okay, great. What else can I do? Well, I've been dealing with Super Channel, so I got a hold of Super Channel. I said, it's time to shit or get off the pot here. I said, I never let them know how broke I am. You know, you don't want to leave that impression because you seem vulnerable. But I just said, you know, it's time to shit or get off the pot here. You've been, you know, dining me for a year here. So Vice President Sandy Perkins calls me on March 19th. And, you know, I'm giving up hope at this point, you know, not hearing back from her. She calls me up. What do you need? I said, I need you to put my concert film on Super Channel on the 5th of July, the week before they play Ottawa. I said 3 days before that, I'm going to have a theatrical screening. So we'll have the screening, we'll have you debut it, and then we'll have the concert. What else do you need? I need help with getting my documentary finished, completion funds. And she's talking to herself again, so if we do this, how much is it costing you to do it? And I told her how much it was costing. We can do this. Fuck. Whew. No, but you know, like from, you know, from, you know, in the last 3.5 years from being a victim of an armed robbery to staying sober and getting through all this nonsense with these guys to have this happen, I'm sitting there going, fuck man, well done, JP. Well done, Doug. Well done, Gino. Well done, Greg. We've all worked together and look what we've achieved, right?
It's all coming together.
I'm pumped. I called my other brother Alan that passed away the previous December, a few months prior. And I phoned my brother Bill, my remaining brother, and who I'm very close with, was very close with, and he was a still photographer on the tours and stuff, and told him what had happened, and proud of you, man, you know, proud of you. And I said, well, you know what tomorrow is? And he said, well, it's the first day of spring, March 20th. And I said, well, it's also the anniversary of our father's passing. And he said, yeah, that's right too. He said, well, carry on, man. So I called the band and I called, you know, my investors and this is what's going on. And Kim Kelly, Greg's manager, and another associate of theirs, and everybody's fucking happy. They're going, wow, well, great, boom, 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 boom. I get a phone call next day from my brother's son, David, and my brother Bill dropped dead. You know, so I was devastated, absolutely devastated. Still have this is my. Sorry, man.
No, take it.
Christmas coming up next week is my first Christmas without him. You know, so it's a tough year for me. When that happened, I was off the charts for about a month, and during that period of time, I'm not going to go into it, but there was some stuff done business-wise when I was unavailable to take care of business, which I did not approve of.
How were you personally though? You didn't go back to drinking or anything?
Oh no! Didn't even light a cigarette.
Yeah.
You know, I'm getting through this, and I couldn't go to Dougie because Dougie was drinking heavily. You know, I had no support there from Doug at all. And Gino was a lovely guy, but he's, you know, he's a lovely guy, you know. And I felt like Doug had let me down. You know, Doug was supposed to be my compadre in this whole thing. He's supposed to be taking care of the business side, the banking, and everything else for the guys. And I had nobody to talk to. And I'm getting phone calls from people saying, hey, you know what Goddo is doing, you know, and Kim Kelly's doing this, and promoters are coming on. Who the fuck is running this thing? Kim Kelly's managing Goddo? This is what's going on, right? And I was like, wow. Okay. I said to Doug and Gino, middle of April, you know, I get my act back together again and go up to Gino's house. Gino lives on the shores of Lake Simcoe, go up and visit with him and Dougie. And I said, you know, guys, I said, I think that the idea of going to Los Angeles and everything, I said, I think we're going to have to give up on that. I said, I can't represent you guys down there. And I said, the way Greg is behaving and the way Gino, the way the whole thing is going on right now, they don't want me involved anymore. You know, they all want to take credit for what I've done here, and that's fine. If that's what you want to do, I'm not going to arm wrestle anybody. Let's just get through Ottawa. Let's just get through Ottawa, you know. Let's. I want to make a nice film that my grandchildren and peers are going to look at and go, yeah, respectful and honest, and day is long, and let's just get it done, you know. They all agree. We think after Ottawa, we'll have a chat with Greg, have a chat with Kim, and if things can be worked out, you know, and there's not too much stupidity between now and then, we'll see. There was an extreme amount of stupidity that took place between my brother passing away and Ottawa. And we've got 6 shows booked, including Ottawa. We got the 28th of June is in Aurelia, and then the 2 days before Canada Day is Cambridge, and then we got an Oshawa show. A few days off, then the screening in Ottawa, and then the TV show debuts on the Saturday, and then the following week, we got Gravenhurst, Peterborough, and Ottawa gigs. We're getting ready to go out the road. And there's been some problems with some gigs, you know, booked because I didn't book them. Other people had gotten involved with Greg, and it was just fucking up the apple cart as far as I can tell, and just grit and get through it all, you know. And it's close enough, the Aurelia getting the Cambridge, getting the Oshawa, they're close enough, we close off early enough that I can come home at night. I got my dog and my cat at home, right? I'd rather sleep at home anyways. Being sober and stuff, I can drive, right? So, you know, no big deal, right? So anyways, I get a phone call 9 o'clock in the morning after Aurelia. Gino's fallen and broke his hip. I mean, I'm just like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, is this a joke? No, Gino's fallen and broken his hip.
Shit.
As if I didn't have enough stress in my life already. You know, I mean, I'm worried about a whole bunch of different things and how I'm going to make this movie come off sounding sweet without sounding bitter, because I'm pissed off. You know, it's, you know, to be honest with you, it was a bit of a moment for me too. Like, if I could be responsible for putting this band back together and them having success again, wouldn't that be nice?
Yeah, sure.
You know,
of course,
and do a great movie about them, right? And, you know, so anyways, I immediately get off the phone and I call young Gene. Have you seen the concert film yet?
Yep.
So you've seen Gene playing his dad,
yep.
right? Great guitar player in his own right. Looks like his dad from back in the day.
Yeah.
I called Gene up, here's what's happened to your dad. He goes, oh fuck, you know. I said, well listen, I said, we're all concerned about your dad. What do you think about playing guitar tonight? We gotta be in Cambridge tonight for a show. And then we're in Oshawa. He does it, I'm freaking out, I'm throwing up. I'm over the toilet, I am puking my guts out. I couldn't contain it. I mean, 20 minutes, I was dry heaving afterwards, and my dog is sitting there whining. I mean, she's, you know, I don't know what's going to happen. We could get to the shows and the promoters could go, fuck you guys.
Yeah.
No Gino? You know, I was told this is the original Goddo, you know. Everything went great. You know, the 2 shows went great. The guys came back to Toronto, rehearsed it down at a soundstage to a rehearsal place to tightened up some songs that Gene wasn't that familiar with, and that, you know, we put together a killer set. And we go out and do the rest of the shows. Now the idea of sitting down with Greg and Kim at the end of the whole thing to talk about the plans for Greg and Gino are gone. I mean, as far as we know, Gino could be laid up for a year.
Right.
Don't know. And I'm just thinking, well, if this wasn't the icing on the tragedy, you know, nothing would be. And I felt so bad for Gino. He'd worked so hard to come back, getting clean and sober, to have this happen to him. And Greg had the idea of keeping young Gene in the band and going on without him, right? And I had no interest in that. That wasn't Goddo, and Doug had no interest in that. You know, that wasn't what we wanted to do. So I figured this is all done. Mm-hmm. This is all done after Ottawa. This is what's gonna be, and you know, we're not gonna take this version with the kid to Los Angeles. And Gene didn't want to do it either. Yeah. I mean, you know, helping out the old man is one thing. You know,
taking his spot's a different one. Yeah.
Yeah. You know, so he real pro came out and did the gigs, and we got great footage from Ottawa. He played like a superstar. Young Gene and the audience accepted him. As soon as you told people it's Gino's kid, right? They just, you know, hey, right on, and all accepting. So, yeah, I officially was finished with them on after Ottawa. I had pretty much thought, you know, you can't do it. I think with Greg was, he never thought that I had it together. I don't think he ever thought that I'd get it as far as I had, you know, and he wanted to sort of take it over again. If Greg had come to me and come to Gino and come to Doug and said, hey, you know, I'd like to redo this deal, or, you know, outcome may have been a different outcome, but that's not what happened. You know, so I don't know what they're going to do now. I have no idea what they're going to do now.
So what are you doing now with it? How's it wrapping up? How are you ending it now?
I've got some more filming to do, you know, and then package it all up, and then take it to film festivals, and then through the normal avenue. And I'm just closing my deal right now with Super Channel. I've done all my publishing business with Greg to get the rights for the music that I wanted to, and so yeah, that's what we're doing. I still believe that Goddo is one of Canada's greatest rock and roll bands as well.
So based on where you're at now, when do you think you're going to be done?
Well, as you know, I just finished my movie treatment. I had to rewrite the movie treatment because what started off as a story about Goddo was pointed out to me by Paul Rogers and Paul Dean and Mike Reno. Mike Reno was funny one day. I'm sitting there bitching and complaining. We're playing up at Casino Rama about 2 years ago, Loverboy. And I go up, I still say we, I go up there to visit him. And Paul Dean, and I'm sitting there bitching and complaining about the business, and they're both sitting there smiling. And what are you guys smiling about? Saying, John, you know, man, for 30 odd years, you took care of bands. You've been their road manager. You know, and they know me from my, you know, drumming experience. I've got that gene in me still. I've never been able to release it. You know, the gene's been in the bottle. But now that I'm a filmmaker, Mike pointed out to me, you're an artist. And I never thought of it before, like, you know, this is just my path that I'm walking down. So it sort of put a new perspective on the way that I look at things, you know. So the other problem is that I'm not an executive producer. I don't know how to negotiate these deals. And that's been one of the biggest blocks for me because I don't know that side of the business. So when people say, what the fuck do you know about making a documentary? They're right as far as the business side of it goes.
Right.
But as far as an artist goes, you go with your gut instinct. And you just, there is no right or wrong. Well, there is no right or wrong. Yeah. You know, if they like it, they like it. If they don't, they don't. You know, it's not their cup of tea for everybody. So I think that I've got a very compelling movie. It's a great story. I've got a great documentary I want to do on the story of Red Rider. And again, that's a story that I'd be personally involved with. And I just want to be able to move forward now and do some things that's enlightening to me. And I think that, I have a voice.
Would you reach out to the band again once you got your completion funds?
I think the band would have to reach out to me. I mean, I've got some more interviews to do with Doug and Gino, some rapping interviews to do with them. But I think it would have to be the cat's out of the bag right now as far as me not working with them anymore. The few agents and promoters that were working with us I think are all sitting there going, you know, what's going to happen? And as I said to Doug Inglis the other night, you know, I said, it's a real shame. And he said, John, he said, you know, you never say never with Goddo. Mm-hmm. There is no end, you know. I mean, I love the business. I love music, and I love the association with the guys. I love creating. This has been the best part of my life, doing this concert film, doing the documentary, representing those guys and getting them back, and the promoters and everybody out there.
Just listening to the passion of you talking about it, though, you can tell it's in you, man. It's like this fire that's coming out of you.
The reason I did it in the first place, back in November of 2009, was out of my love and respect for the band as a whole and their music. You know, I've raised my kids, I've gone through divorce court. I mean, any money I get now is just bonus to me. And as long as I can live with the rest of my life, you know, people say, God, you quit smoking, you quit drinking, what are you up to? I want to be in the best shape possible when I die. Yeah. You know, I've got my hearing still. You've heard my mix. I mean, I still got my
Your hair looks good.
You know, I'm having a bad hair day today, but thank you. You know, it's all for the love, man. Yeah. I just love what I do. And that's why I wasn't a good roadie. You know, some road crew guys I got along with, but their road crew guys are road crew guys, and they have their thing. I was more in line with the artist, you know, like, you know, or be in the studio or writing a song with Ken Greer or anybody, and you know, I'd go, hey, do you think this line might work? Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, you know, and they'd listen. We had a rapport, you know,
because the artist was always there, man.
Yeah. So, given, you know, when I got hit by that car on Grey Cup Day, and my parents didn't encourage me to get back on the drums, from Ken Greer going, we need a sound man. This is where I've gotten to, and I'm, God, you know, I love my ex-wife. I love my children to pieces. I miss my wife. I miss my kids. You know, this is going to be a tough Christmas. My daughter's out west this is her turn to go out. Without my brothers this year and everything else. It's going to be a tough year. But I miss that. I like to consider myself a good man. I consider myself to be a good man and a good friend to people. And I'm a little shocked, disappointed with the way this has turned out at this particular point in time as we sit here today doing this interview. Greg, I love Greg. I hold no hard feelings towards him. I understand him. Gino, Doug, the same thing. I truly hope that they all understand why I did this in the first place.
All right, John. Well, thank you very much, man. I appreciate it. This has been great.
It's all good?
Yeah, it's fantastic.
Thanks, Greg.
That's it. I appreciate it.
Okay, brother.
That's it.
Thanks so much for listening to You Can Now with Craig Knight. You can check him out online at www.youcannow.ca.